Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, staff, and members of the public here present. It is 7 p.m. I have started the meeting.
Thank you for that. Can you please conduct a roll call?
Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Commissioner Carter,
Thank you for that. If we could all have the Pledge of Allegiance on my mark.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation
under God.
indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do receipt of correspondence, I just wanted to say today is the Global Day of Kindness, or World Day of Kindness, and I'm wearing my cardigan sweater in honor of Mr. Rogers. And I just would love this meeting to be in honor of kindness.
Or submitted to commissioners and staff.
Thank you for that. I did want to make one comment about correspondence, especially on this. Just for the record and for the public, it's really difficult when an hour before the Planning Commission we get, 15 emails or whatever it is. So I just wanted to say that into the record that for the public out there, if you want to submit an email, please don't wait until the afternoon of the Planning Commission, because it's really not feasible for all of us to be able to, during our afternoon, even if we don't have access to the email or something like that on our way driving here to a meeting or something like that. So I just wanted to say that. So moving on to the consent calendar item, we have C1. Oh,
Sorry, we need public comments of items not on the agenda, and if you guys would like to make a motion for receipt of correspondence.
apologies.
No worries.
Can we have a motion for there we go.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Carter. Please vote. Vice Chair Menthy,
Not doing that.
it's for receipt of correspondence.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have motion passes with 4 ayes.
Thank you. So now do we have any speakers for items not on the agenda?
Yes, we have 2 speakers registered.
Okay.
We have Christian May Suzuki and Steve Siegel. Are you Christian? Yes. All right.
My name is Christian May Suzuki, and I'm here to introduce myself. I recently launched a new news publication in the city of Culver City called the Culver Crescent. I did so in the belief that we as a city need a more fair and in-depth news source to cover the things like the Planning Commission in our city. And so I just wanted to introduce myself, let you guys know that I'm here to, when you guys have things that you want more publicly known to the public and more brought out there, I'm here as a resource, and I'd love to get to know you guys more and really broadcast what you guys are doing here. As well as that, and I hope to work with you together in the future, not just as your capacity as a planning commissioner, but as in your capacity as a member of the DBA, and hopefully bring better news and more responsive news to the city of Culver City. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Steve Siegel.
Hi, Commission. Thank you. Pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to start with a request for input from the Commission, and this isn't just specific to the Planning Commission, but it's also specific to items later tonight, and that is regarding outreach. Excuse me, it seems like we have a system in the city that could be drastically improved. I'm not particularly knowledgeable about this enough to give great suggestions, but recently, for example, and this affects perhaps on the getting emails late too, I think if residents were better informed about things, it would improve the whole process. And again, I'm not really great at this, but I do have some ideas. So what happens is people find out late about stuff and they email and they do things. People are busy, they're doing stuff. It's tough. I mean, so that's part of it. A specific example with us, I live in a neighborhood, it's west of Overland, it's near Vets Park. We didn't know that someone was interested in removing the paddle tennis courts on Olinda. So we found out about it late. Now, indeed, there were mailers that went out regarding this that had to do with invitations to parks department functions and sessions, but people don't know specifically if it's affecting them, why would they go? So my suggestion, one suggestion would be to, if it affects someone local to something that's happening, let them know that this area, this thing could be affected. And that'll definitely get more interest stirred up. This will help everybody of every income and every part of the city, if they have a better feeling or understanding of what's coming up. Because it's very difficult to know, and then things kind of get piled in later. And we have a group of a pretty good number of people who are interested in things, but they don't find out about it until later. So I'll talk more about the Olinda courts later. Part of this, I'll also mention too, that just in general, if you can keep a lookout for things that, I'll use the word junk up, Culver City west of Overland. We seem to pick up a lot of just stuff, plans and things that happen we either don't know about. For us on Culver, we were supposed to have a frontage road quite a while ago, and that got scuttled. The purpose was for safety. It's dangerous getting in your car on South Culver because cars are really zipping by, and when the freeway off-ramp moved, it got even worse. And then we lost the opportunity to have a frontage road. That's one example. There's a bike lane on Olinda that goes north of Culver, and I know there's people who like bike lanes. I'm an avid cyclist. The problem is nobody uses that bike lane because the kids who live, like my kids, if you live Culver or South, you go to Farragut typically. It's just a natural school. So there's not that much traffic. So we have a lack of parking on Olinda. It's a big problem. So that's one other aspect. The third will be, I guess it's coming up, I don't know. There's trees and removing the trees on Culver west of Overland for a bike lane. Again, people can ride bikes without a lane. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. That is the end of our speakers.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not to have staff address kind of the general public outreach MO of, our process in the city for, maybe not. Is there, I'll say one thing from my perspective. Public involvement takes public involvement. I do want to push back a little bit because this meeting, for instance, happens on a calendared time. The whole entire year is calendared. Public announcements go out before this meeting with an agenda. If anybody's interested, all they'd have to do is look every 2 weeks and see what's coming up on the agenda, and they'd know 2 weeks ahead of time what's going on, at least with the date of the meeting, and then the agenda comes out 3 days before the meeting. The parks outreach, we'll get into that, I'm sure. I'd love the staff that worked on that so diligently. This has been going on for years, literally, and there's been many, many outreach and opportunities, and they're going to even show them in the presentation tonight. So I kind of have exception with not knowing what's going on because it's out there. And I know that not everybody can get access to that, but you can only go so far to reach every single citizen in a community. And I think that if I would just encourage those who are interested and have an opinion to seek out that information as opposed to wait for somebody to knock on their door, because that's not feasible in a community. Okay. Any other comment from commissioners on that? I don't want to take the mic. Okay. Let's move on to C1, approval of draft Planning Commission meeting minutes from September 25th of 2024. Does anybody have any comments on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, if we could just get a motion.
Thank you. Moved by Vice Chair Menthi, second by Commissioner Jones. Please vote. Thank you. Motion passes with 4 ayes.
So now we can move on to A1, consideration of Parks, Recreations, and Community Services Department's park plan. Can we have a staff presentation, please?
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Ted Stevens. I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. I also have with me Adam Ferguson, our Senior Management Analyst. At the City Council meeting on May 8th in 2023, the City Council directed staff to proceed with an expedited request for proposals for a feasibility study for Bill Botts Fields and Veterans Memorial Park. At that same meeting, discussion about a parks master plan occurred and the need to analyze all the parks in Culver City for resources, amenities, and improvements. On December 11th, 2023, the City Council approved Olin to be the consultant for the Parks Plan. Olin is dedicated to shaping cities as resilient centers of cultural vibrancy, public health, and natural integrity. In an effort to provide opportunities to all residents, neighbors, and the city at large, the company is dedicated to exploring 4 key areas in the city's park system: diversity, inclusion and belonging, equity, park access, and climate, water, and biodiversity. In order to incorporate these areas throughout the planning process, Olin utilizes various techniques in their projects through community engagement, attention to the city's priorities, and collaborative conversations. Olin's office is a few miles north of here in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles office has an expansive list of projects that the company has overseen. Most recently, the company completed the Los Angeles County LA River Master Plan that encompassed all 51 miles of the LA River. Olin's experience shows a strong ability to work across scales from pocket parks to larger regional parks. This specifically can be seen with their 2 legacy projects, the J. Paul Getty Center and the Playa Vista Master Plan. They also have extensive experience dealing with Southern California's climate and creating long-term goals that incorporate future trends specific to climate concerns in the area. Currently, in the draft phase of the Parks Plan, all feedback from the Planning Commission will be reviewed and analyzed for the final plan that will be presented to City Council in 2025. The project director, Jessica Henson, is here to present the plan and answer any questions.
Thank you for this opportunity to present to you and for your work here in the city. We're really happy to be here tonight. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about the schedule we've been using for the Parks Plan, some of the engagement work to date, the process, a little bit about the draft vision and draft recommendations, and how we're going to be wrapping this up, and trying to do that all very quickly so we can leave some time for questions as well. You may know we started this process last spring in around February and March, starting to do some base level info gathering. Really getting a good handle on the general plan was a big part of that and what you all were working on. And then going into May, launched a community engagement process over the summer and into this fall. We've just completed a period of time for draft comments, which is ongoing. I'm happy to hear people here engaging tonight in that there is still time to get and make comments on this plan. In Culver City, we have 13 parks, about 85 acres, you probably know. This is also part of a very extensive network of other state and county resources in fellow cities next door, and a lot of planning resources that have become the basis of this. So the general plan recently being adopted has been integral to this. You probably know that the general plan recommended the completion of a parks plan. So in terms of the logic steps, this is happening. It's great. There's also a lot of work on water, on infrastructure, and bike that has come into this and been really woven together. Community engagement has been foundational to this, and the effort has really been, while there's been traditional things focused on trying to meet people where they are at like Fiesta La Bayona, trying to get out in communities. I know that some people might feel like they found out late, but the fact that people know is great. And that means that I think there's been a lot of success over the summer and into this fall getting like a high saturation of knowledge. We've had 2 mailers that have gone out to residents, and we've had community meetings, a whole host of different pop-ups. We've had thousands of people stop by. We did a youth camp this summer with over 200 children participating during the day, which was really cool. And also a lot of analog things. So you might have seen banners at different parks over the summer, and have hit a lot of folks that said very specifically that the postcard was how they found out about the plan, for example. The website has been up since May. There have been a couple of different iterations, and we've also been posting presentations on there so that people can see the current information as well as interact with different mapping, sort of like story map elements as well. Through this project over the months, we've also been coordinating with local interest groups as well as different departments. So, for example, the planning department, talking with Public Works, understanding obviously the PRCS staff. We've talked to folks like the Arts Foundation, the Environmental Sustainability Committee for the Unified School District, the Disability Advisory Committee, among others. In the survey first round this summer, we had about 860 people participate in that, which was really nice to see, and a pretty decent representation around the city and different zip codes that were a part of that, as you can see here, and different folks that have lived in Culver City for different periods of time. So this wheel is showing that we had folks that have lived here for less than 5 years, as well as people that have lived here for more than 15 years, and a fairly even distribution, which was helpful. We asked people questions like what parks they use most frequently. Veterans Memorial came out on the top. That makes sense. A lot of the larger amenities are there, but every park had representation, which is also helpful. This was probably my favorite as somebody that spends my life working on park design and park planning, asking people how much time they're spending in Culver City parks. And if you add up the people that are either there daily, multiple times a week, or weekly, it's over 75% of the people that we're answering. So parks really are a foundational part of the community. That shows up in the commitments in the general plan and a lot of the discussions amongst yourself as well as the Parks Commission and Council. We heard some good things about the parks. We also heard some things that need to be improved around maintenance or facilities. This is a word cloud of how many times different words appeared in surveys over the course of the summer. So beautiful, fun, relaxing, clean, and accessible, but also things like, need some work too along there. So there's a mix of elements. We also collected a lot of direct qualitative feedback over the summer. A lot of that feedback, there were a lot of things around accessibility, making sure that we have paths and networks for people of all varying abilities. There was a lot on native plant and drought-tolerant species, and connectivity and access came up several times, as well as recreation, desire for more recreation facilities. We've been going through a process, and some of you might have seen this since we've presented it several times since May, but we've been mapping needs for parks. That includes things like acreage and distance and access, water, how stormwater management relates to this, and water use in the parks, as well as different ecological needs for biodiversity and plant material. We've been overlaying that with different opportunities, of course, the existing parkland being a significant one. We have looked at potential acquisitions or leases, and we've looked at potential partnerships, like continuing with school district partnerships, for example. And overlaying those and looking at this lens of equity is how we've started to develop the park recommendations that are part of the draft plan. A lot of these recommendations really center around looking at where some of our more vulnerable communities are in the city of Culver City. So we've been looking at things like the Cal Enviro screen, and where, for example, some of the more burdened communities, as you can see here in red and orange, might be. How that relates to the SB 1000 priority neighborhoods that have been highlighted as part of the draft plan has been a significant portion of this. And looking at things like walkability. So how long does it take different parts of the community to get to their park, and where are the areas that there might be gaps in that? And then how do those gaps get filled in some cases by other parks resources, say at the state or regional level? We've been considering how we sit in the Bionah Creek watershed, how that relates to some of the efforts in the parks adjacent to that and the stormwater management, as well as the tree canopy that's in existence in the park. So the forestry plan has been quite instructive in understanding the opportunities in the city for increasing things like shade connectivity and resilience. Bringing all this analysis together in the plan, you'll see that we've mapped out where there are needs for acreage of park, where there are needs for better walkability or access, where there are water or shade needs. That's all part of the plan recommendations. And in some cases, it ties very well to the opportunity zones that are identified in the general plan. So I know you all are tracking this very closely, but as some of these areas that are set to expand in population in the coming decades are happening, obviously that will put different pressure on the parks. So we've mapped where those population additions are expected and how that will affect those parks in those areas, and have been coordinating with the planning team staff, which have been awesome, around how some of those specific plans might have particular things about parks and that connectivity. So in the plan, you see there's a set of system scale recommendations and site scale recommendations both. The system scale relates to some of the topics that I was just talking about, and then the site scale really zooms in on each park. The plan is driven by a vision, mission, and goals. The vision is really an aspirational statement of where PRCS wants to go in the future. Parks are the heartbeat of Culver City, bringing together people of all ages and backgrounds to recharge and inspire joy in vibrant natural environments that honor our shared history and community. And the mission statement that really defines how PRCS works and will continue to work is to provide for the well-being of Culver City residents by supporting diverse, safe, and equitable opportunities for recreation, learning, and arts while protecting our most valued natural and cultural resources. We didn't want to stop there. The vision and mission need a series of goals, obviously, that are very tied to the goals of the general plan. There are 5 in the plan around access, sustainability, recreation, arts, and culture, preserving habitats, and of course, capital funding and operations pieces. All of those goals, and if you need something to do in your pajamas later because the sun is setting so early these days, you can read the actions that are below each of those. For example, around something like access, there's a series of actions below that. And then each of those actions, if you highlight it, there's a series of methods. So one of them is related to ADA access, for example. And if you expand that, there's a series of methods that PRCS can achieve. You'll see in the plan that there is a cross-reference column in there that also relates back to the general plan, which policies and items these help fulfill. And then just as I wrap up, I'll show you a few things here. We have, for example, in the recommendations that are part of those actions and methods, things like turf reduction, inefficient lighting, waste reduction and energy efficiency, native planting, stormwater best management, facility and amenity updates, enhanced community programming, accessible paths, improved pedestrian access, wayfinding, signage, and inclusive play elements. Each park, like I mentioned, also has its own design. You can check them out online. And you can actually play with this little slider, which is sort of fun. You can see existing and some of the proposed ideas. I do want to emphasize to everyone that's here is it's still not the final plan. So we're still taking that feedback and rolling it in as we make these revisions. So you'll see there's this is Culver City Park, existing, and then proposed ideas that are online right now as we speak. And then as we head towards the final plan in Q1 of 2025, we'll be making revisions. We've heard a lot from the community about some of the comments during the comment period, and we're happy to have that feedback, which is really great. Right now, we've been looking at funding opportunities, how PRCS might position around both local, state, federal funding initiatives in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years, and what those might look like. And like I mentioned, we're looking forward to wrapping this up on the final plan. We've had a chance now to start to go through all the public comment that has come in on the draft plan. And I do, just to give you a couple of examples of things you may have heard about, we are active. We've heard a lot about Carlson Park, a concern about maybe too much activity there if the playground were included. So I just wanted to let you know that that decision has been made by PRCS to not move forward with the playground at that park. So if that's been a concern you've heard. Another one that was raised was a concern around an additional pedestrian bridge near Lindbergh for a pedestrian bridge across the river. And that has been also removed as of today based on that public feedback. So if those are a couple of things that folks have shared with you, we wanted to just proactively address them. But a lot of the feedback that has come in has been resoundingly very positive and very excited, looking forward to the future of parks in Culver City. So certainly invite your questions and comments, and look forward to any ideas you might have as we wrap this up in the next month to month and a half. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume we can pass correspondence. I mean, it's all record that the feedback that we've gotten just tonight in written comment would be a good thing to pass to the team, the PRCS team, and to Olin for review.
Yes, they've received copies.
Okay. Thank you. I think do we want to have any questions for Olin before we have public comment, and then we'll come back around? Okay. Why don't we have public comment? Thank you for your time, and we'll reserve the right to have some chat with you. Thank you. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing? Do we need a motion to open the public hearing for, do we need a public hearing for A items? No. Okay. Can we hear from the public, though? Okay, so we don't need a motion. Do we have speakers requested? I assume we do.
Yes, we have 8 speakers registered to vote.
Okay, can we give?
To vote.
Yeah,
I'm still a week behind.
I'll keep tally up here.
To speak. Oh my God. Yeah, we have 8 to speak.
Okay, can we give everybody 2 minutes,
Sure.
please?
I will read out the first 5, so everybody's aware that they're coming up. The first 5 is Jean Black, Steve Siegel, Lisa Ogami, Vic Maidenmate, and Mark Borgwick. Our first speaker is Jean Black.
Janine Black has decided not to speak.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Steve Siegel.
Thank you, and a very professional presentation. And it was nice meeting you at one of the functions. We just have a couple of things from our neighborhood group from what we saw. And by the way, it's an outstanding overall plan. There's a lot of great things about it. Before I go further on the outreach, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Reelman, all the normal outreach is fine, but extra something about what's going on specifically in your neighborhood would be helpful, because not enough people come to the meetings. I went to a few planning meetings, 20 people showed up. It's sad, and I went to a couple of the park meetings, not enough people show up. So something specific would be helpful if possible. Paddle tennis courts on Olinda, we love them. It's an incredible success, 53 years, thousands of players a year, hundreds of thousands of matches. It's a live action thing happening in our neighborhood. Any building of any sort kind of deadens the area, so we strongly ask that we retain the paddle tennis courts. We understand others might be built also, that's great, but we love seeing it in the neighborhood. We don't like the idea of a parking garage at Vets. It wouldn't be aesthetically too great looking, and we also wonder about people wanting to go into a garage and then park and then walk to the, with your kids and all your stuff with my kids. It seems like a lot. Plus, we've had a problem with unhoused people being removed in our neighborhood, and we wonder about them potentially going into the garage and it's hard to, unfortunately, we have empathy, but where do they go? And it's hard to remove them, and so we see that as a potential problem. I don't know if anyone here is a baseball player, and Mr. Stevens and Mr. Ferguson were nice enough to meet with us, but we're asking to keep baseball diamonds where they are in Lindbergh, and also 2 in Vets if possible. Kids need to see a backstop in a field to want to play. It's an interesting game. Visually, it's fun, but to actually play is its own thing. If it's not in front of you, you're not going to want to do it, and it's a really great game, and so it needs to be there in front of the kids to see it. And I guess I'm out of time. I don't know if I have any other comments, but we thank you for considering what we have. We may send some more emails to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lisa Ogami.
Good evening, Commissioners. I think I heard that this item has been scratched from the proposal. This is regarding Carlson Park Play Area number 5? Okay. If that's the case, maybe what I'll do is I will just mention, we were unaware that it was scratched, so I started a petition 48 hours ago, and within 2 days, I collected 190 signatures, but not only signatures, 20 pages worth of comments. And so our community has really spoken up. So if you would allow me to just read out one comment, which kind of encapsulates the feelings that people have about Carlson Park. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. And this was very heartfelt because it came from a 5-year-old's perspective. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So sorry. Okay. Comment 119 out of the 190 comments that I received. We were drawn to the Carlson Park area specifically because of the peaceful, unique green space. In fact, when he was 5, my son dubbed it the Nothing Park because it doesn't have any play structures. That name is not derogatory, but rather it meant that it was open to be whatever you want it to be. I'm so sorry. The freedom and creativity of the Nothing Park is magical. And open to the imagination. I'm so sorry. My younger son spends most of the days there under the shade of the tree with his toddler friends and nannies. I love that he's...
Please continue.
I'm so sorry, I'm almost done. I love that he's surrounded by nature and that his nanny doesn't need to worry about him navigating a play structure. This park has been instrumental to the development, in part because he plays with his peers and not on structures that he will outgrow and soon look outdated. There are other parks nearby that he visits on occasion that have play structures. Carlson Park doesn't need its own. Please maintain the beautiful, open, unique green space as is. We love the Nothing Park. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
May I ask, has that been entered into the record that?
Yeah, please, if you can give staff that packet so that they can share it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
They have sent it, I have received it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ruth.
Our next speaker is Vic Maidenmint.
Good evening, Vic Maidman, 4270 Motor, a 60-year resident of Culver City. I am so pleased you've dropped this issue. And I'd like to speak to that very issue of Carlson Park. It has always been a passive park, and it is one of the only passive parks in Culver City. And I'm going to condense it completely. I consider the park's natural state to be the sensory playground. That natural state where they can pick up a stick and pretend whatever they want it to be. They can hang by a tree and do whatever they want. That park has to stay passive. Now, on the other issues, crosswalk stop signs to be added to Motor and Braddock, absolutely necessary. Additional benches, yes. Trash cans, yes. Any trees that need to be replaced should be natural and native. We don't really need any more tree canopy because we like the open space so the children can run and do and not have to confine themselves between the trunks of the trees. But yes, keep this park passive. It's always been that way, and everybody enjoys it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers are Mark Warwick, Pavi Mohammed, Meg Sullivan, and Alicia Ide.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for giving me a moment. I just wanted to tell you that I thought, I'm embarrassed to say that I just am learning about this 48 hours ago, which is my fault. And you've done an excellent job with regard to this, I think, in exposing the community to its process. So I'm letting you know that from my perspective, you've done a great job. You did a beautiful job. I think you've done a very thorough, excellent approach. And the fact that you came to the realization that Carlson Park itself is something that you would like to admit, that particular little addition you wanted to do, I applaud you. and I appreciate that. This is a very unique city, as you all know. I grew up in Beverly Hills. I moved here in 2015 and decided to build a house here, right by Carlson Park, as a specific destination that I wanted to, my wife and I wanted to be. It's a very special park, and it's all the things that you will see and read in the document Lisa's going to provide you all. And I appreciate you taking the time reading some of those things, because they are heartfelt, and they are specific, and they are from all those neighborhood people that live around there. And again, thank you for the consideration, and thank you for hiring an excellent company to do the overall valuation. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Next speaker is Pallavi Mohammed.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Pallavi Mohammed. I am a commissioner on the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission, so sister organization to yours. I am not here on behalf of them. I'm here as my own self, so I don't speak for them. But I did want to say thank you for putting this on your agenda. The more opportunities we have for the public to give their feedback, the better. One of the things when we were contracting to have this master plan put together is it was important to us that we had as much community outreach as possible. We were not under any illusion that we would be able to get everybody, because some people are busy and don't have time for things. So I think the activities that Olin has undertaken to reach out to communities have been exemplary. They have gone to individual parks. They have gone to schools. They have talked to community groups. They have shown up at Fiesta La Bayona, had their own space there for people to come. Their website is completely open for comments all the time. And so I hope we get public comments like this, and we get more comments on their websites. They read all of those comments. What was shown to you this evening with the sliders, it's really slick, it's really easy to use, and it's an open forum comment area. So you can write as much as you want, as long as you want, as many times as you want. So please, we want comments. These are our parks that we are trying to put a plan in place for the next 50 years in Culver City. So as much comments as we can get, we want. The plan is not set in stone yet. We are still getting comments. We are still making adjustments. And so any comments you have, any other comments the public has, we welcome them, and we really hope that at the end of the day, we can end up with an excellent product that the majority of the community will be happy with, because I'm not fooling myself that everybody's going to like it, but the majority of the community is happy with them and will be in place for years to come for the benefit of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Meg Sullivan.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My husband and I are owners in the Arts District just north of the Hayden Track. And in looking at the draft report online, I was happy to see that there's an acknowledgement that additional property will have to be somehow acquired as the city continues to grow. I think the number was expected to double, and that the amount of park property would have to triple in the coming years. And I was happy to see also that there was a table where there were some opportunities that were mentioned, including the college. I was disappointed, though, to see that the land flanking the Expo Line bike path was not mentioned. I've tried to draw that to the group's attention. So that would be on the north end of the Hayden Tract, where apparently there has been designated a need. And some land that's especially valuable is just outside, just on the other side of the fence from Sid Cronenthal Park. I think many people in the city will agree that one of the most creative and wonderful gestures in the city in recent memory is the mini park that's been developed by the platform people under the Expo Line overpass. And there are similar opportunities as you head east, and I would really like that explored in this report. So thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Alicia Ide.
Hello, I know some of you know me as the, helping with the city meetings, but I am a member of the staff of the City of Culver City in the Public Works Department, and I've assisted the Cultural Affairs Department. But I'm here tonight not in that form. I'm here to represent the Culver City Arts Foundation. I'm the vice chair of that organization, and we had the opportunity to speak to Olin in great depth, as well as the previous plan consultants in regards to making sure the plans included significant arts improvements. The city, despite the fact that it was founded on a creative economy, has very little in the way of performing and other arts facilities. It doesn't have its own municipal center. It doesn't have its own performing center. And so we wanted to encourage the planners to consider making sure that arts, which is just as important as sports in terms of recreation, mental health, physical health, and well-being, this community is incorporated in all planning. And there's lots of, if you come to the community meetings, there's lots of speakers about pickleball and tennis and the pool and the AYSO and the sports teams and all of that. But sometimes there's the fact that we don't have enough arts facilities in the city keeps us from talking about it. And so we want to make sure that everyone, including the committee, including all of the advisory groups that are have a voice in this process, to remind them that we do not have enough arts facilities in the city, and that any planning that we do in regards to parks should include that as a key element. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was the end of our speakers.
Okay. So shall we go through with some questions for either staff or the consultant?
Just questions at this point?
I think so.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we get
Yeah.
that straight.
I have some questions for the consultant, Olin. Thanks. I want to ask about the parks pressure map. In particular, so I'm, looking at this for the first time, and I was wondering about the decision to include parkettes in here. Was that considered in whether to and whether not to?
Yeah, we did discuss that, and they, yeah, well, I'll be curious to hear, how about what's
Sure. Yeah, I didn't,
tell me what you think.
I don't want to, I figured you thought about it, but so one thing I was noticing in particular with like Fox Hills Park and Fox Hills Parkette, that if you assumed they were one park, for example, then it would be a much bigger impact, the like current versus projected.
Yeah.
It would be around 1 now, and then it would be around 0.5 in projected, according to my spreadsheet. But anyway, so that was, I think that like, and looking at the map itself, like what the park shed is, a lot of the new development is in or a lot of the new projected development is in the park shed of the parkette, which to me throws it off a little bit.
It's tricky.
But there's a balancing, I'm sure. Like,
I think you're asking an excellent question, and that district is going to see, it's one of the areas that, as you know, is going to see the most change. And so that's been a kind of active conversation. Still could be adjusted if between, the planning team staff and the PRCS staff, if that makes sense. And we've had some conversations with the division that's looking on the advanced planning for like the specific plan in that zone. And however you calculate it, parkette and park or one or the other, there is going to be a need for additional parkland in this area. How much, it could shift a little bit to your point. But with that specific plan effort, the consideration of paseos or other things that developers might need to consider to be able to actually accommodate that new population is going to be very, very critical. And we've had some great conversations around that with the planning department staff. So I think it's a great question. So totally happy to consider that and have another dialogue around it as we work towards finalizing this. But that is a neighborhood that's seeing some of the biggest pressure here.
Yeah. One other thing, and I mean, I could be reading wrong. Does this only include Culver City residents?
It does only include Culver City residents. So one of the things, as you obviously know, is that people outside of Culver City come over the edge and come here. That's a tricky conversation to discuss how many people are using the resources of Culver City Parks. A lot of people are. This method sort of builds from the county parks needs assessment. They did sort of step 1 in 2016 and then step 2 in the P&A Plus in 2021. This takes it to a different level of granularity, but in that calculation with the county, that's how they look at it with the community. So it's consistent with how the region is thinking, but you're making an excellent point that PRCS is actually serving a population already greater than the residents of Culver City. And once we add the projected populations in the 2045 general plan and the additional folks that are using it, there's a lot of pressure on some of these zones, and Fox Hills and Culver West are 2 of the highest sort of pressure districts, as you noted.
Yeah, and so I was thinking Culver West just because it's like a little line through LA.
Yeah.
And then I also around Tellefson, the Clarkdale area that is like this, after Fox Hills is the second highest dense area, and north of Venice Boulevard is just as dense. And both those are SB 1000 neighborhoods. So like that's kind of like, I mean, I don't expect all of that to be captured in one map, but that's just kind of what I was thinking when I saw this. And
you're absolutely right. That's exactly the things that I would suggest in the coming years that this group tracks together, because there's a lot of pressure on 2 or 3 zones. And actually, I was really happy the Hayden track comment. That's a great idea about the Expo line. Thank you, Meg, because that's another district that, as Hayden track specific plan moves forward, additional pressure there. So those are sort of the purple zones of that pressure map as we see some of those expansions. And I think, yeah, you're very astute in putting these maps together.
well, I mean,
What page is the pressure map?
yeah, sorry.
Do you have the full plan?
Yeah.
94.
94. And then the table's on the next page where they have the numbers.
As the commission and community are aware, we do have a significant number of large mixed-use development applications under review citywide, but certainly in Fox Hills. And some of the conversations that are going on right now while we're in a pre-application phase for the most part is the use of paseos and usable publicly accessible space on private development sites. Obviously, this is a very complex and nuanced conversation. These are largely housing developments, so we don't want to certainly lose sight of that. But I did, kind of want to amplify that we recognize that, the city's ability to purchase land in that area, given the market, would, certainly be difficult. So we do have an opportunity here, both with the specific plan, but also with individual development applications. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to go to that next. I was thinking specifically about the, because it's mentioned as a possibility in the plan is requiring parkland, and we have. It seems like to me that it almost always goes to the in lieu fee, which is great also. But I was thinking the same thing of like, how can we? I mean, it sounds like you're doing it.
Yeah, and certainly with our partners in Parks and Rec who are part of development review, for example, and again, this is all very hypothetical, but maybe you'd have like a plaza that quite honestly didn't serve a recreational use, and that we're, revisiting that with our applicants as to how to make it as active as possible.
Yeah.
Certainly there are trade-offs to all those conversations.
And I think the platform park is like a great example where, I mean, I have like a bias of like, oh, they're going to be using it for private events all the time. Like, I don't like that. But they do a good job there, I think, of balancing that. It always feels like a public park, really, going there. They still have private events. But anyway, I'm glad to hear that it's on everybody's mind. And I did want to, well, because it was mentioned in comments, the parking garages at Vets Park. I was wondering if you could just say a little more about that, about the choice there. Was it just to use the space without losing parking, or?
Yeah, I can speak a little more to that, and then Ted or Adam, feel free to add after that. Veterans Memorial is at capacity in terms of parking spaces, and there is a desire for more swimming facilities, for more performing arts opportunities, and additional recreation fields as well. And so that pressure on parking is going up. It seems tough to lose land in a city as Culver City is getting, as you've just said, more and more dense. So one of the ideas here that developed was, could there be a garage that's along Culver that actually has a first floor that's activated with either retail, or the teen center is proposed to move into that area, so that it's not just blank to Culver Boulevard, and obviously keeping those amazing Canary Island pines that are along there that march along, but actually creating that parking space to have that enlivened zone. And then being able to use the roof space of that for additional racket sports and basketball or tennis type sports that are just in need of things. So it's really being driven by just the cost of land going up so much in Culver City. PRCS is short acreage overall, as the plan points out, and it doesn't look like, and I appreciated that comment, like market conditions is not necessarily pointing to many acres of availability land. So we're trying to take parking amount of footprint to a smaller amount. That's really what's driving that. Ted, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I was going to add, was that in the plan, you can see that we're removing some of the surface parking to create more open park space. And so it just makes sense not to waste all that surface parking for parking when it could be park space, open space. And I think the space that we added is passive too. So it's kind of adding a passive space to a park that has tons of recreational amenities. But now we can say, okay, well, if you go in this section over here, it's a little bit more passive and quiet area, kind of away from all the sports and everything. So, but we still need the parking. And having that parking, like she said, it opens up opportunities on the rooftop for several more pickleball courts, tennis courts, just opens up a lot more opportunities up there, and taking advantage of all the space that we have. And the parking garage, I mean, obviously would be designed so as not to just look like a big brick wall along Culver. It could be, have a design aesthetic, and, it could be designed in a way to not be an eyesore, in our opinion.
Has either PRCS or PD or anybody else weighed in on the issue of, security for the parking garage and things like that? I mean, we do have folks who park and live in that surface parking essentially right now. So has that been looked at as part of that recommendation?
Well, I mean, we have a security guard now that monitors the park and keeps an eye on things, so that wouldn't change. So
That'd be a 24/7 person that watches people going in and out of a parking garage?
They're not there 24/7. I believe they're there till midnight.
So that's what I mean. So I think those kind of issues need to be taken into account of.
If I could
Please.
add, our existing public parking lots are run by a third party who handles security, maintenance. I would imagine that we would enter into a similar agreement for any future parking garage.
Okay, cool, thank you. Sorry, please go ahead.
That was actually the end, so.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you for your answers. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Carter?
Hi, thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. So much work has gone into this. I just had one question. I saw a picture of the La Bayona bike, the creek with the bike path. how does that tie into things?
Yeah, so the La Bayona Creek connectivity is really critical to accessing a lot of the parks, and obviously, it's part of a lot of the analysis of how people move around, so it's really critical there. Actually, PRCS actually maintains a lot of those little access gateways and things already, so that certainly is part of a lot of the high-level system recommendations around planting native species and connectivity. Obviously, as the LA County controls the easement of that. We did have a meeting with LA County along the way, and obviously I think PRCS continues to look for opportunities in the future for that, for more connectivity, and will continue to look. There are a lot of actions and methods around that in both the general plan and this plan. So in the coming years and decades, hopefully that will be only further strengthened. As of right now, we did not find, we looked at a couple, but we did not find a super magical creek adjacent land for sale that Culver City could buy and really make that more robust in the very, very short term, but everyone's hopeful. So, is that fair? Okay, it's a great question. Please don't lose track of that. It's highlighted in the general plan as one of the most significant connectivity opportunities for the city, and I think it is critical for the park connectivity too.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Menti.
Hi. So again, thank you for the report. I did want to start just asking a little bit more. What were the financial constraints that you used, just in general, in drawing this up? Because obviously this is not a billion-dollar wish list. So.
Right. We, in starting this, obviously some of you might be familiar, there were some feasibility studies done for vets in Culver City Park last year. They had really large price tags. There's some great stuff in there. I think that some things that long-term could be moved forward. But the budgets of those were quite out of reach of the city in many versions of a reasonable timeline. So in our early summits and conversations with PRCS, we actually started tiering things from what would gold level versus silver level different improvements look like, and how could we start to sort that. We're now working on cost estimates associated with some of the draft ideas and how that would come together for the final plan. And then we're working on a prioritization system so that PRCS can rank how different projects in certain neighborhoods can move forward in the short or midterm. So it certainly has been a part of it to make sure that we're not showing the public things that are completely out of range for the possibility for the city in terms of financial resources, trying to stay in the hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars for this system, which would make a lot of the updates. Honestly, $30 to $50 million would make a lot of significant updates in parks. When you start getting into some of the structural items, you start getting to the $100, $200 million marks. But there is a lot that can be done in the parks for these improvements. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, I think you're leading me to a next question,
Okay.
which is where I thought this might go, which is, you refer to the studies, the feasibility studies, which were assuming a large parks bond, and so you're not assuming a large parks bond is necessary here, or is this just, or in fact, is it necessary?
I think that's to be determined, probably not just by me, but by others. We did ask the public what the appetite was for in some of the community meetings. And we said, you can improve the quality of your parks or the quantity of programming, or, if you do all of these things, we're going to have to raise taxes. There was a very much a lack of appetite on a raising of taxes, at no surprise. So I think that bears consideration by the city of how much you want to go from a bonding perspective versus some of the other opportunities that we've highlighted between, for example, locally, LA County has the Measure W money, which is stormwater related, but because a lot of the stormwater projects that Public Works is looking at are located adjacent to or under parks, that actually provides an opportunity in parallel to upgrade those park facilities while that stormwater infrastructure is going in. It's probably one of the most reasonable short to midterm types of funding that will make some of these parks improvements, but wouldn't require a new bond. But Ted, do you want to speak to the appetite of the public for a parks bond?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a policy decision ultimately by the city council. But, I mean, the good thing about having, there's a lot of projects in here. Some are large, some are small. And some may be more affordable than others, just on the city's budget moving forward or park and lieu fees in the future. But also, ultimately from the federal, state, and county level, it's not uncommon that sometimes funds can be made available for a specific neighborhood or specific neighborhood that's impacted by, say, pollution or by whatever. And having this parks plan, having a cost estimate, we'll be able to have that information available if we want to go for any grants. So there are funds that come out there all the time, like I said, at the federal, state, and county level. And so we'll be looking at all those opportunities. And these costs will be very helpful for us when we decide what we can and can't go for.
And if I may, just the feasibility studies that we saw here, I guess earlier this year about billboards and veterans, are you incorporating them in any way into this master parks plan?
Well, they are definitely referenced in the parks plan. But I think that's about the extent of it, that they are referenced, that this took place and that this happened and what was kind of brief description of what was in them.
Yeah, there are a few elements from them that have been pulled forward. For example, the replacement of the building at Vets, which has passed its lifespan, and in order to have any sort of arts things there, it needs that. So some of those elements have been as singular sort of line items pulled forward into, you'll see in the plans. But a lot of the very expensive elements of those are referenced, but not necessarily included in the current master plan effort.
All right. And the other question I had, and this really follows up on what Alicia said, can you just take a couple of minutes just to highlight what the sort of arts improvements are in this plan?
Yeah, for sure. I was really excited to have that comment, and the conversations have been good. I think there's a need, and we've talked about, to bring arts to different parks, small spaces for small performances. I'm not talking about gatherings of hundreds of people, but if, a school or something wants to put on a little small skit or performance, that's something that's been incorporated in several of the parks. So at Culver City Park, Sid Cronenthal, and a couple of the others that have these very wonderful little performative art spaces. At Vets Park, the idea of replacing or upgrading massively the existing facility there, the gymnatorium, however we auditorium, gymnasium, shifting from that so that real performances could happen there again. And then also, in addition, one of the things that is in here in the actions and methods is to incorporate actual pieces of art. So it's not just physical pieces, but it's performative arts, it's new facilities, and also expanding the art in public places collection in the parks. So as projects happen and % for art is set aside, actually locating and placing and working with local artists to place art in the parks as part of that collection.
And I guess my final question is, we did hear, we saw the overview, and then sort of the individual 12 or 13 parks, sort of, well, that's online to look at. Is there going to be a process where we sort of publicly go through each park? Because I know that's, ultimately, that's where the public is going to be really interested and really nitpicky.
Great question. So in September, we had a series of 3 community meetings where we had large boards with each park and answered questions directly on each one, which was great. We also had the boards, the prints of those at Fiesta La Bayona in August. So we did get a lot of that feedback through those. I think the only public setting that we've, in this type of setting, presented every single one was maybe we did some at the Disability Advisory Committee, and we did some at the Parks Commission. We went through them all with you guys, right? More or less, not all, but some, a few, okay. So I think the biggest ones were those September meetings where the boards were up 30 by 40-inch boards presenting the different ones to the community. We have got a lot of very specific, to your point, park by park feedback at those meetings, and then also in the web interface from these. And then I don't know how many emails, but a fair amount of emails have come in on those. Because you're right, people, you guys know and are tracking a lot of the system stuff, but a lot of people are mostly interested in the 2 or 3 parks that they interact with most.
Well, I recommend at some point you do that. At some point, we have a process where, again, the individual parks are at a hearing like this. It doesn't have to be us, but somebody does it, because
But that's what,
We did it in September.
that's what they did.
you said you went to a,
In September, we had like the individual boards in meetings.
right, but I mean a public hearing.
Oh, it wasn't at public hearing, that's
Right.
true.
Because often it is at public hearings like this, when the agenda goes out, that we finally get people who need to come forward and say things, as they did with Carlson Park.
Okay.
And it does bring certain things to a head that are really useful, because city council will not spend as much time as we are tonight
Fair point.
on doing it. And it's great for us to get to, or some board, to get to do that work first. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't remember, Adam, how many we went through at the DAC, but we can check and then talk to you about that. Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, those are my questions.
Okay. I don't necessarily have specific questions. I mean, I love what I see, and this kind of, your question about the outreach, there has been a lot of outreach and a lot of opportunity for people to come forward and join these live sessions or online sessions. And the idea that we need there to be a public hearing for somebody to get themselves to finally show up, just my opinion, I don't agree that that's what we need to provide. The public forum has been provided for them to show up, boards for every park for them to look at and say, I like the pickleball court over here or not at all. That it's all there, and now it's online. They've had many public opportunities for people to show up, and the idea that it has to be in this room for somebody to motivate and come here, if they don't, then I don't necessarily have a lot of time for that, because we're all here putting forth this time to do this. I don't know what else to say about that. I think one thing I really love is the kind of overlay of the different opportunity zones and planting and I really like the idea to see that, just as a specific example, like we recognize that we need more tree planting in the SB 1000 zones. Those kind of things are very important for, improving the quality of the underrepresented communities here in Culver City. We know Carlson Park is an amazing and unique and special gem within Culver City. We need to extend the love to these other parts of the city. And, the idea that we're working towards that, I think, is very important. Performing arts, I couldn't agree more that having opportunities for performing arts. The one that comes to my mind as you're talking about it is over at Culver West Park. They've got that community room, and my kids and a large number of the community do delightful productions and go there and do performances, and that's their performance and rehearsal space. And the idea that we can spread that out amongst parks with smaller facilities, I think, is an amazing idea, and a place for the local community organizations to get together in their community, to deal with issues that are local to them, instead of having to motivate to vets every time to go to a community room and have a meeting or something like that. Gesundheit. I, just my own input, I definitely agree that it would be great to see baseball diamonds in more places. I know we have them there's one at Vets in the current draft. The one at Lindbergh would be my opinion. I know there's two there now, but at least having one on that, by the Stonehouse side, I think is still something that would be useful to have it not be concentrated in places that are necessarily hard to get to. Kids want to get on their bikes and ride down to the park. And they can't ride up to Bill Bott's, and not everybody can get to Vets Park safely. And I think having those kind of facilities at more places throughout the city is better than some other things like things we've already talked about, the pocket parks along the Expo line and into the Arts District. I think that is an excellent move, and I think that's all I had. I think there's a lot of great things there, and for all the public out there that's watching, or maybe will watch or read the notes on this, please visit the city's website and find the link to the draft plan and to the plan website. What's the web address for the plan website?
Oh, goodness.
Or what's the best way for the public to get to the place where they can access the commentary?
On the city's homepage,
Yep.
there is a link near the bottom that mentions the parks plan. If they click on that, that gives them all the links they need to get to comments, to get to draft plan reading. It gives them everything they need.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Do you have any other questions for us? Because I know we're not voting on anything. We've had this discussion, and we want council to review this input. And I don't know if there's anything else that we need to necessarily act on, but I do want to give you an opportunity to ask us any other questions. Or staff, PRCS staff.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you all very much for your time and insightful commentary. We'll be working to incorporate and finalize.
We will have some, we only ask questions. We can.
I know, now we can have some discussion here. So I want to open that up to so Commissioner Jones, since you started before, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. I have a couple comments. I did want to talk about public outreach because I think it's always important to talk about, and the commenters mentioned it. I'm going to sound like a broken record because I talked about this general plan too, but the parks folks weren't here. But I always feel like the good community engagement is impossible to do what you need to do, but it's also like the most important thing to get right. And I feel like criticism is always welcome. It should be always welcome because we should be striving to find. And I think that especially, I also want to say everything that Commissioner Mohammed said about the outreach, I think was right on. That y'all did an amazing job. I think that the story map website thing was a great way to take, there's so much detail here, but it really breaks it down to digestible portions that are targeted to, this is your park, here's substantive things you can give comment on, and I know you got a lot of good feedback from that. I keep thinking about a commenter at the general plan who said, she had gotten all these emails, and it wasn't until she saw the giant map at the farmer's market that it got her attention. And I saw your boards at Fiesta La Bayona, and I think that was an amazing. I saw people immediately like, oh, that's my park, and then walk over to it. We used to get, I feel like, notices for city events, and like the biggest thing is the city crest, and there's little text. Now you're doing big like headlines that really are eye-catching and stuff like that. I was thinking about the commenter's point about like, this is about a big, I forget what the headline was, something like, we're making our parks plan or something like that. I think it's hard to target. It's probably not worth the money to like really like say, email all the people in this neighborhood and tell them something about their park that's changing maybe. But I was thinking like, what if it just said, your neighborhood park is changing? I don't know, like really get people to like grab their attention. I think you guys did a great job, but I do think we should also always take the criticism to heart and be like, what can we be doing to better? Because I think that it has resulted in the last few years of like really great outreach, and I think it can do even better. One thing that I noticed when I saw the percentages of comments for different parks was that there was 1% for comments on Telefsin. And I think that neighborhood is probably a neighborhood that isn't getting a lot of the outreach. I mean, not that you're not trying, but it's a hard neighborhood, I think, to do outreach in. It's one of the densest neighborhoods. It's a lower income neighborhood in Culver City. A comment someone made at the general plan that I think was good advice, but like I'm saying, because Parks folks are here, is outreach through La Bayona Elementary School. A lot of the parents and families that go to La Bayona use that park. And the school, I mean, we get a lot of information through the school, but I think that's a good way to target users of that park. I'm not certain. I think I did see something maybe in the school. I don't remember if it happened, but anyway, that would be some of my feedback on the community engagement. Again, I want to say you did an amazing job, but it's also is the most important thing to get right. I think that's mostly what I wanted to say, other than just to echo the comments that I think that this is an amazing document and a lot of work went into it. You really took the feedback that you got to heart and identified needs and came up with a plan to meet them. I think it's an exciting, hopeful vision for the city, and that's all I want to say. I'm excited to, whether or not we do a vote on it, I support this plan.
Nothing to add. I just want to say thanks for all the work and thank you for responding quickly to the feedback we got about Carlson Park. And it's nice to be agile like that. Thank you.
So I'm really glad this is being done, because, especially having been through the general plan and comments have been made tonight about this, with a population that's projected to increase by, at least 50%, we need more park amenities. We have a park system that was designed in the 50s and 60s for a very different population at a different time. And we desperately need them to be upgraded for the future. In that vein, I hope that the work that was done on billbots and vets in those feasibility studies does get incorporated, at least in an appendix somewhere, because I think, we have a plan that's based on some financial considerations. We don't really know what appetite the public's going to have over the next 15, 20 years to do more, but part of that dreaming work has been done. And I think that needs to be kept there, because we need to tell people, I think, not just, here's what we think is a good master plan, but also, if we had more money, this would be our master plan. And we do want people to know that those are the options we have. Because the people that are sitting here 15 years from now will want to know that we had thought bigger, probably. So I don't want to lose that. I think it's worrisome to have these two sort of documents at odds with each other in some way. So let's make sure that they're not. You'll hear me say this about outreach. When we do these opt-in surveys, we learn a lot from the people who care. But by not doing a scientific survey, we don't hear from a lot of people. And I don't know how different the responses would be, but I'll probably say it at every time, at every meeting. I wish we had a custom of going out and doing scientific surveys about some of these questions, because I think we would learn things from populations that we just don't hear about. I mean, there is the sort of Culver City resident who is most likely to participate in these is, you know, we can guess that maybe they have kids, maybe they have time, but, you know, single mom who lives across the line in Palms and takes their kids to Vets Park is actually an important consumer of our parks and somebody who doesn't get listened to. And yet, if enough of them show up, it actually changes what happens at the parks. So, you know, it's not a substitute for outreach, but it's something that, you know, when we do these big plans, I wish it was part of what we did, because it leaves some information on the table. And I do want to make some final comments about public outreach in response to the chair.
Sure.
But also to say, you know, when we sit through these, and I do want to actually echo everybody's comments. This is one of the best I've seen. Like, this has been, clearly did a lot of work to get as many people, you know, we would love to see hundreds of comments on things. And, you know, it was really hard on the general plan to get that kind of engagement. It was, because general plans sound so exciting, right? It just really draws the public in, even more so than master parks plan. I'm joking. I'm just saying that these are hard things to get the public to engage in. But we always see it crisis after crisis, right? We see, you know, our phones were blowing up this afternoon about Carlson Park. You know, at a certain level, we have to recognize that this is like a feature, not a bug. This is what happens. You know, is that we send out notices, we're changing the parks, we're doing all that, and it's not until somebody sees something that bothers them that they get interested. And those people, or they just didn't realize that improving the parks meant possibly taking away the thing that they liked, right? They didn't know. And then suddenly it happens. And that moment takes place usually when there's an agenda for a public hearing. And that's when sort of people run around and scurry, and that's when somebody notices something. And it happens with such regularity that I think we can predict that it's going to happen. So as tedious as these public hearings may be, I think that they actually serve the purpose of informing members of the public sometimes about these events. And I think we have a much better outcome for Carlson Park, by the way. You know, when I had little kids, I hated the fact that Carlson Park didn't have a play area because I wanted to take my little kids there. But I also knew that not every park had to be made for me. And that when my kids got older, they were going to want to go there, and they did, and they do, because not everything has to be for me right at that particular moment. I think that the people who live there probably have very similar experiences. Some kids love it, maybe other kids don't. But this was somehow in the discussion of how we improve the parks. Of course, what you don't see is what if there's an advantage to leaving these things alone? That's only going to come out when the public gets not so much informed, but alerted, unfortunately. And I'm glad that that can happen here, and I'm also really glad that our Parks Department was responsive to that. Because that's, in a small city like this, that's how government has to work, right? We are all volunteers. We don't have a lot of time. If the city staff is not able to be responsive, then the public doesn't get a responsive government. So thanks for being on the ball with that, because that's where, you know, amazingly enough in our system, a lot of the representation is actually going to be taking place. And again, thank you for this, and I'm supportive of what I've seen.
I just want to say one last word on that. And I think we all here have the patience right now, even at the late hour, like if we were going to say, okay, let's go through each park and we'll talk about it. Like I kind of thought we were going to do that tonight. And to that point, where is everybody to come see that happen? We're here at a public hearing. It was agendized that we were going to talk about the park plan. And the people aren't here to go through, like if we did go through park by park tonight, we'd be talking to ourselves. or they could watch it afterwards, but then they would have no course to give comment except to go to the website and give comment online. So I want to kind of meet you halfway there, I do, because I do think that when you really start and look at the nitty-gritty, you start thinking about it, right? You go park by park, and it's like, oh, that's what's going to happen there. They're going to take that baseball diamond away and put cornhole, Little kids don't go play cornhole, they play stickball or whatever, when they ride their bike to the park. So I agree with that. I hear what you're saying about the feature, not a bug, because really it is over and over again the same thing. It's once you realize something I don't like is going to happen, all of a sudden you get very interested and show up. And I don't know how to change our outreach or society to address that. It's human nature. You're absolutely right. So that being said, thank you very much for your time, staff and Olin and the public. We, as planning commissioners, on this issue and everything else, are here to represent the community. So if you have something that you need us to represent here on nights like this, please reach out before the meeting and have a conversation with us. Right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so do we need any kind of, no, we don't need a vote. We can move.
Recommending or no?
No, we're not going to vote, unless there's something you want. It's an
action item. When we vote, that's what I ask.
You could make a motion to recommend the city council.
I would like to make a motion to recommend the city council adopt this.
a motion on the table to do that.
And I'll push the button and everything, maybe.
Is the button not activating?
I pushed it.
Oh, I'm not seeing anything on my end, but I can take a voice vote.
Okay. I move to recommend the city council adopt.
Seconded by Vice Chair Menthe.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Jones, second by Vice Chair Menthe. Please vote. Thank you. Motion to recommend passes with 4 ayes.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we can move on to not as exciting an item, but still very good. Discussion of draft written report for the City Council regarding Planning Commissioner's accomplishments and proposed activities for the upcoming agenda items for the next 6 months, and authorized transmittal to City Council. Item A2, if we can get a report from staff. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and community members. I'm Emily Stadnicki, current planning manager, and happy to be with you tonight. This item is an overview of the Planning Commission's June through December accomplishments and proposed activity and upcoming agenda items for the first half of 2025. As a reminder, it is City Council policy that each of the city's commissions, boards, and committees provide a written report on their activities twice a year. In the second half of 2024, the Commission reviewed and approved the following projects: the CUP modification for the Costco fueling station relocation and expansion on Washington, a 2-unit condo at 3556 Helms, Site plan review for a 43,000 square foot office building at 5813 Washington Boulevard, and site plan review and tentative parcel map for a 4-unit condo on East Boulevard. The most consequential action you took was your recommendation to the City Council on the general plan update and comprehensive zoning code update led by the advanced planning team.
Woohoo.
You made recommendations on the 5700 Hannum mixed-use project with 309 units, which was approved by council on Monday night, and the amending map for Ivy Station that will go to City Council on consent in January. You also had discussions on the comprehensive sign code update and the Parks Plan recommendation earlier this evening. Looking forward, we currently have an entitlement application in for a new plan for 11469 Jefferson Boulevard. This was a former Jeff Hotel project and now has a new development team. It has fewer rooms, but a similar footprint.
That's Jefferson right at the freeway there?
We also have a number of projects currently in the preliminary project review stage. They're all listed on page 3 of the staff report. I'm just highlighting a few here. 10950 Washington Boulevard is proposing 508 units with 77 affordable. The 100% affordable project, 11304 Culver Boulevard, currently proposing 143 new units. We have 2 projects on Washington Boulevard that are dual jurisdictional with the City of Los Angeles, one with 15 units in Culver City, one with 78 units in Culver City. And we have 4315 Sepulveda, a 5-story project with 20 units and 14,000 square feet of commercial. We also have a couple of projects that have, I'm sorry. I think I was going the wrong way. Yep.
Yeah, the projects you were mentioning weren't lining up with what was on the screen.
Apologies. Okay, now we're ready. That's the Sepulveda one I mentioned. We have a couple projects that have had community meetings but haven't submitted yet. 6201 Bristol Parkway, proposed for 846 units with 36 affordable and 9,200 square feet of commercial. 5730 Uplander Way with 329 units proposed, including 39 affordable, 29 very low income, and 10 moderate. In January, the Planning Commission will review and make recommendations on updates to the objective design standards for streamlining residential development and the density bonus ordinance. We also have zoning code amendments in process that deal with ADUs and other changes necessitated by recent state legislation. We will also bring you updates to the subdivision ordinance targeted for February, patient demand management ordinance updates in collaboration with the Public Works and Transportation Departments will be ready maybe in the first quarter of 2025. So it will be another exciting year with 3,750 units in the development pipeline and over 500 of those affordable. In conclusion, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the Commission's list of accomplishments for the second half of 2024 and proposed activity and upcoming agenda items for 2025 and authorize transmittal to the City Council. I am available for any questions, but the director has a few words first.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. Mark Munzer, Planning and Development Director. I just wanted to mention, it came up tonight, so the 2 specific plan processes, which are of course, the next steps towards implementation for the now approved, I love saying that, general plan and zoning code update. So those processes will begin with the community likely in January. With kickoff meetings for both the Hayden Tract and the Fox Hills specific plan areas. We do have, as part of a contract, we have hired 2 consultants. Studio 111 will handle Fox Hills, and AECom, the Hayden Tract, working with city staff. The kickoff meetings will be in January. We do, as part of the scope of the contract, study sessions with the Planning Commission and the City Council. I don't know when those are going to be. We need to kick off the process with the community, start to get input. My guess is the second half of 2025, but I don't know that yet. So I just wanted to give you that input. I saw your face, Chair. I'll do our best to make it the first half.
Okay.
Thank you.
I term out in July after 8 years. Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I would say my only input is as much as we can do. I think that, I don't want to speak for everybody up here, but we can always do more than we think comes to us, you know? Like, we cancel meetings or we have 1 or 2 items, like, we can do as much as you guys can throw at us, so bring it on.
We can keep here till midnight.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah. I'm glad you said there would be study sessions. I was like, just thinking in like, gotta have a public hearing, or, I mean, it's not a public hearing, but like, get the public out. That's great. Great to hear. I loved the summary, total units, total affordable units at the end. That was a cherry on the top of a report like that. And let me just go back. So objective design standards and citywide density bonus ordinance in January, and subdivision ordinance in February. And we think the TDM ordinance in Q1. I'm not going to hold you to any of that.
Yeah, the TDM is less in our control.
Okay, of course. But that's very exciting, all of those, that they're imminent. That's amazing. Thank you. I mean, all of it I'm excited about, but there's so much. You're gonna be here.
I'll be here for that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on that stuff? Okay, do we have a motion to transmit, authorize and transmit?
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Jones, second by Vice Chair Mente. Please vote. Thank you. Motion passes with 4 ayes.
Do we have any public comment for items not on the agenda that have come up during the process of our
We do
meeting?
not.
Okay, thank you very much. Any items from staff or commissioners?
I was just going to give you, I mean, we talked about it, but just a little more color. We are not expecting to meet in December, and we are expecting to cancel the January 8th meeting, but January 22nd, we will have a full agenda with the objective design standards, DOBI, a CUP for daycare center, and maybe the ADU updates. We will be meeting at the senior center, is that what you said? Senior center, because there are going to be some upgrades occurring in the chamber.
The chambers will be closed starting after the December city council meeting with the installation of the new city council. And they anticipated opening up later in January. It could go into February. I mean, the good news is it's a lot of, as I understand it, technology improvements that need to be made. So that will be done during that timeframe.
Cool.
But is this our last meeting of the year then?
It is.
Happy New Year.
Christmas then, yeah.
All right. Has anybody, do we know any status on our empty chair yet?
No, it's my understanding the city clerk's office handles recruitments for the boards and commissions. It's my understanding that there may be a mid-year special recruitment, mid-year in the sense of the beginning of the new year. But when I checked in, I did check in on it today, and that status was undetermined.
Okay. I think I would like to send a message to council to ask them to act on that as soon as possible. I don't know how better to do that.
I'll convey it to the city clerk.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, a motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Moved by Vice Chair Mente, second by Commissioner Carter. Please vote. Thank you. Motion passes with 4 ayes.
Thank you, everybody.
Has anyone ever voted no on a motion to adjourn?
We had, I think it was Commissioner Lakoff,
Oh.
that it was his last day.
Oh, right.
He voted no, because, yeah.